Hey everyone, welcome back to the Phoenix's Tale. I am your host Gabe. This week we are diving into chapter 3 of Chamber of Secrets, The Burrow. But before we do that, we got to get to the recap. So, Ron, Fred, and George. As we ended the chapter, or ended our discussion last week, Ron is outside Harry's bedroom, rattling the bars on the window, not the doors. It's getting a little late for me, but I want to get these recorded. So, Ron, Fred, and George are there to rescue Harry from the Dursleys because Harry had not replied to any of Harry's letters, and naturally, as his best friend, he, along with Fred and George, were getting worried and found out from their father, Arthur, who we finally meet in this chapter, that Harry had gotten a warning from the Ministry of Magic because of the magic Dobby did. But they blamed it on Harry. The magic that Dobby did to ensure Harry did not return to Hogwarts. On the flight home in the flying Ford Anglia, Harry explains what happened, and they surmise that Dobby was sent as a ruse rather than Dobby taking it upon himself to warn Harry away from returning to Hogwarts. They arrive at the Burrow, where they realize that they are in big trouble with Mrs. Weasley for stealing the flying car. And, as they're kind of coming up with a plan for how Harry can just kind of show up in the kitchen. Hey, guess who showed up in the middle of the night? Yeah, Molly Weasley does not mess around. So she marches out of the house, and they're still outside in the yard, and she gives them hell. And as their punishment, she sends Fred, George, and Ron out to denome the garden, and Harry's like, well, I'll go too. So he helps denome the garden. We finally meet Arthur. We find out that Ginny is extremely bashful around Harry because this is the first time Harry has really seen her since he's got to try to figure out how the hell to get onto platform 9 3/4 in the last book because Hagrid forgot to tell him about it. And that Harry just absolutely loves the Burrow. Thinks it's just like the best place he's ever been. So before we dive into our discussion, this episode, even though it's a couple weeks late, should have launched on October 1st. It is currently October 15th. Again, my apologies. Mental health, struggle. The last couple days have been better, so I am working hard to get caught up for all of you so that by the end of the week, it is currently Wednesday, October 15th, as I'm recording this. By the end of the week, I should be caught up through Chapter 7. I've written and researched through Chapter 7. So, anyway, this technically is the first episode for October. And I like to go through all the character birthdays. So, let's jump into it. A very happy October birthday goes out to Fleur Delacour Weasley. We do not have a date of birth on her. I try to do as canon as possible, but we don't have a date for Fleur Delacour, so I'm going to stick her in October. I think that works. Angelina Johnson, who we know had her birthday last week from Goblet of Fire, which the names were drawn on Halloween, and I do believe that it was the following day, because in Goblet of Fire, the Beauxbaton delegates and the Durmstrang delegates arrived at Hogwarts on the 30th. Then they have the Halloween feast the next night, and that's when the names were going to be pulled. And Angelina, I believe, put her name in on Halloween earlier in the day. So sometime last week in Harry Potter terms, but for us here, sometime next week. So anytime I'm going to shoot for, say, from the 21st to about the 25th is Angelina Johnson Weasley. Minerva McGonagall has a very happy birthday on the 4th. Professor Phileas Flitwick, my head of house, on the 17th. We have Molly Weasley herself on the 30th, and then we have Creature. For those who are not familiar with the story, we meet Creature down the road in Order of the Phoenix. So hold tight, but Creature's birthday is Halloween, the 31st. So in researching this episode, when I sat down to read the chapter just to make whatever notes pop into my head, the only thing that I could think of that just was like a lighthouse in the middle of the night, in the middle of a storm, was the immense amount of freedom Harry had to have felt when he and Fred and George and Ron finally get all of his stuff into the car. He gets Uncle Vernon, busts into his room right there at the end because Harry almost forgot Hedwig. And her screeching woke him up. And finally everything's fine. Harry and all his stuff is in the car. Harry and the Weasleys are on their way home to the Burrow. Can you imagine the amount of freedom Harry felt in that moment? Having almost an entire month at the Burrow now with his best friend and, his best friend's family. So we're going to discuss how this pertains to my life in particular, because this is a current emotion that I have been feeling for a very long time. This overwhelming desire to be free. I mentioned last week my 12 and a half years of PTSD unaided, meaning no therapy. I have 3 people in my life I can count on right now. My mom, my baby brother, and my son. And because my son is not my therapist, that leaves my mom and my brother to talk to, and they are not helpful in that manner when it comes to the real deep, heavy stuff that I need to talk about. And in struggling to get therapy because of my current situation and not having my own vehicle and not having money, and I have to utilize my Medicaid, which I'm currently on. I'm in an area where, I'm sorry, we're not taking new Medicaid patients right now. So I've been kind of stuck in having to navigate this on my own the best I can. And that has led to, after 12 and a half years of basically feeling like the state of Michigan has become my prison and my mother's house here, my prison cell. So that sense of freedom that I always imagine when I read the beginning of this chapter and into the next chapter, especially. We'll talk about that more next week. But it all starts at the beginning of my most recent story, like I said, the PTSD, and the very story that ultimately brought about this podcast in the first place, now that I think about it. So bear with me. I am going into the details again with the story. And if you've heard it, you've heard it. Anyway, 12 years ago, 12 and a half years ago now, I had my trauma event, the sudden death of the man that I was dating at the time. And it was that event that resulted in the PTSD that I have been managing on my own, quite poorly, because I have yet to get proper therapy for it because of how things have ended up for me since. I lost my job some 16 months after the initial trauma event. So the initial trauma event was May 2013. I lost my job in September of 2014. And since then have been fighting against myself, my trauma, this entire time to get back on my feet. And for those who don't understand how insidious certain mental health issues can be, such as PTSD, what I have been attempting to do for myself in the best way I could also had a detrimental effect, not unlike having open heart surgery or having a new hip or having a new knee, something big where you're going to need some physical therapy or some kind of therapy after the recovery period. But you need to get your ass out there the day after the surgery and go run a marathon, which, for those who aren't aware, is 26.2 miles. Basically, that is what I have been doing to myself. Not intentionally, obviously. I've been doing the best I can. But trying to get back on my feet and trying to be normal and have a normal life and feel normal again, it is not working. Like I said, not unlike somebody who just had open heart surgery. Okay, tomorrow you're going to get up and run 26.2 miles. Have fun. Yeah, that's kind of how it felt like I had been left unsupervised and unaided this whole time. So here we are, some 12 and a half years after the initial trauma event and 11 years after losing my job. I have no income or money of my own. I have no car of my own. I live with my 77-year-old mother who is still working nearly full-time. She's working 30 hours a week while battling cancer. So thankfully, my adult son and my baby brother are both contributing financially because they both finally found jobs last year. So as a family unit, we're okay. And over the last year, I would say that stress alone has eased up a little bit. As a family, we are okay. Doesn't change the fact that I got to do something or I'm screwed. My son will be okay. My brother will be okay. But if something happens to mom before I can get back on my feet properly, I'm not going to be okay. So it's been a lot. However, I have such big plans for myself with the life that I want to have that it has been increasingly frustrating to find my way out of this. But all I can do is just keep doing it. And like we talked about last week, not succumbing to the Dobby effect, not beating myself up for it. I'm doing the best I can under the circumstances. And when I have a bad time, I got to take care of myself. Anyway, what complicates the dynamic here is the fact that my mom and my baby brother and my son are literally the only three people in my life. I am and have been for over a decade seriously and severely socially isolated. The only options I have right now for socialization is those three. Literally, that's it. Oh, it'd be fun to go out to lunch, or haven't been to a movie theater. I don't know, does anybody still go to the movies? But I used to love to go to the movies, and oh, there's a new movie coming out. Let's go to the theater and watch it. And I've got three people to choose from, and that's it. Or I go alone. And since I don't have any money, it's been a mess. The additional problem that I alluded to just a bit ago is that none of them are an emotionally safe space for me to even vent off the racing thoughts and frustrations that I have. So it's been 12 and a half years of emotional buildup to the point where I feel like I am always so close to completely losing my shit and having an all-out breakdown. Just it's right there, just below the surface. And I have mentioned previously that my mother is the most unsuitable because she doesn't listen and she has a big mouth. And when I say that she doesn't listen, I'll be talking about something and she'll comment on what I'm saying that to her, I'm sure it makes sense, but to me makes absolutely no fucking sense to the topic going on in my brain whatsoever. And every time she does that, it feels like, there's so much more extra work that I have to do in an attempt to explain what she's doing before I can return to the topic at hand and try to explain to her that what she just said does not make sense to me, even though it makes sense to her. And so I've stopped even trying. I can't. I just can't anymore. And I can guarantee that whatever she did here has been shared to countless people she works with. And so I tend to be a private person on a lot of topics. Basically, anything that I need to express are not things that I want her going to work and telling, half the hospital, because she works at a hospital. She's part of the registration unit. And my brother just doesn't listen at all. So anytime I want to have a more serious personal conversation about some of these heavier things, that even just having a best friend would have been oodles better than what I've experienced over the last 12 years. But when I start to go on to something like that, he suddenly has something else to do and he walks away. And at least he's direct about it, and I know where I stand. Plus, I don't have to worry about him telling other people. So, like I said, for my son, he's not my therapist. Something I very much wish my mother had thought of with me after she and my father divorced. Because yes, now I identify as also a parentified child on top of everything else. So I'm a fucking mess. I know that. Anyway, after my so-called friends ghosted me in the first year or so following that trauma event back in May of 2013, my life quickly cleared itself out of all social connections, just leaving me with those 3 people. And over 12 years of struggle, as I said earlier, this state has become my prison, and my mother's house here has become my prison cell. So yes, I yearn for freedom, and this is how I feel every time I read the beginnings of this chapter, and just how relieved Harry must have felt being in the back seat with Ron in the Ford Anglia, chit-chatting with Fred and George and letting the 3 of them know this is what's been going on. This is Dobby, blah, blah, blah. And the freedom that I want is just so simple. I want I want the freedom of just having my own money, my own income, and my own car, and my own place again. Something I have not had in well over a decade. So, yeah, this one tends to bring up some heavy stuff for me, but just 3 things. My own space, my own money, my own car, so I have the freedom to do whatever the hell I want whenever I want. That is the crux of it for me. And that is why as soon as I can get some money together for myself, one of the things that I will be doing after signing up for BetterHelp and getting into therapy, because at this point, unless I get a phone call from one of the many lists I'm on telling me, I'm sorry, no new Medicaid patients right now. Once I get the therapy going, I'm flying home to California for 2 weeks on my own. I'm going to go by myself, and I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. So, I know things sound dire for me right now, and they most certainly are, but it all depends on how one sees one's current situation. So yes, it has been filled with a lot of frustration. However, at the same time, I'm now able to look back on various moments of just the last 12 years and seeing the things that I have learned and the things that I have figured out for myself. I hate to say it, I would not be where I am mentally as far as what I want for myself had I not experienced the last 12 years as difficult as it's been. So I don't want to sound like I'm shaming anybody out there, because I know a lot of you right now are struggling too. But most of us tend to wallow in self-pity and play the victim. I myself have been known to do that when my frustrations with my current imprisonment, for lack of a better term, have just become too much to handle. And I prefer to use this as motivation to keep going with my podcast, finding a way through whatever mental barrier I have with content creation on social media and promoting this podcast so I can get more listeners in and hopefully help more people. And any other ideas that I'm currently working on to monetize all this. I'm not giving up. And it's important to note for those of you out there who are struggling. I know giving up feels easy, but I'm looking at my life now thinking, well, this is bullshit. I don't want my life to be that. I don't want that to be all that my life is. You know, I've got a lot of big plans in my head and a lot of cool shit that I want to do. And that's what keeps me going, to try different things. And boy, let me tell you how many things I have tried. I've lost track of how many things I have tried to get back on my feet. You know, in addition to looking for jobs, I'm looking at different side hustles. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. I'm being as open-minded as I can and giving things a try and doing what I can without any money to do this. It's extremely difficult, but I know that there is a way. I just have to keep going. And like we talked about last week, not beating myself up when, like for the last month, my mental health has been, I'm just barely surviving. I get up, get out of bed, I do one thing, if I can even do that, but the last month I have just been a lot of doom scrolling and binge watching stuff because I just physically, mentally, emotionally could not get myself to move more than that. So, thankfully the last few days haven't been so haven't been so much of a struggle. There was a word there. I lost it. Anyway, the point is I prefer to use this as motivation. You know, things can change if you do the work. And that's been proven over and over and over again over the last we are less than a month away from my birthday, almost 54 years. As long as you keep moving forward and pushing forward, and things will change. Take that rest when you need it. Don't beat yourself up for it. But you got to keep going. Or don't. I certainly would never shame anybody for wanting to give up because I understand how heavy it is. So let's look into some psychology now. So what is our psychology lesson for the week? Let's look at my notes. It's been a couple weeks since I looked at my notes. Using frustration as motivation. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I read that on my notes just now. Using frustration as motivation is a powerful psychological strategy that can transform challenging circumstances from lacking resources to longing for freedom, which is where I am, into an engine for progress, creativity, and perseverance in pursuits like job searching or building a side hustle or anything to get back on your feet. Anything that you want in your life but currently don't have. So Psychology of frustration and motivation. Frustration signals that something in life isn't working. It's the emotion heard when desires for freedom, autonomy, or achievement feel blocked. Rather than viewing frustration as a dead end, psychologists recommend seeing it as fuel to reevaluate plans and take new purposeful action. This approach encourages shifting focus from what's missing to what can be changed proactively. So, turning adversity into drive. Resilient people convert adversity into opportunity by first accepting their reality. Yeah. Practicing self-compassion. A lot of that over the last month. And actively working toward goals. And those steps include embracing frustration as a sign to adapt or redirect your efforts. Mindfully acknowledging emotions without self-blame. Refocusing on actionable what and how questions rather than why me. That's a big one. And that's where my head tends to go. After, it's okay to cry about it. It's okay to have that pity party. Okay. Just make sure it doesn't last too long. Once you kind of get to a point where you're feeling not so frustrated, not so angry, not so stressed, even for just a few minutes, instead of looking at it as in, why me, I start to switch to, okay, how do I get myself out of this? How do I get from here to where I want to be? Excuse me. What do I need to do? How do I need to do it? Excuse me. I haven't had any Dr. Pepper in the last hour or two, so I don't know why I'm getting sort of hiccups there. And also the final point on that one, maintaining a growth mindset, believing in learning from setbacks and finding motivation in purpose and passion. Practical strategies for harnessing frustration. Reflect and create an action plan. Accept circumstances, assess your resources, and build steps that will move you forward. Work with what you got. Pursue meaningful goals. Purpose stabilizes motivation when circumstances are discouraging. I think I need to do a bonus episode here. And it's not going to be Harry Potter specific. But I think what I want to do is just kind of show everybody how I use my Google Calendar as a task list. Task list for myself. But it would take too long in this episode, so I'm going to make that a bonus episode now that I'm thinking about it. Because I find that even if I, especially in those moments like I had over the last month where, okay, hey, I got my kitchen clean this week. I did the dishes, swept and mopped the floor, took the garbage out. I got my kitchen clean this week. I delete it from my task list. And, there's some dopamine stuff, and I'll include the psychology of that too. But this is where I find pursue meaningful goals. And I put anything up there that I want. I've got, reminders for, my workouts. Get your ass out there and go for a walk. Or turn on your whatever Beachbody On Demand program you're doing. I'm in the middle of Lift 4 right now. Anything like that. So I think that's going to be a good bonus episode to go through how I do that for myself and how that helps me. The next point is practice gratitude and self-compassion. These foster resilience and clarity. And then shifting perspective, viewing setbacks as signal to grow rather than reasons to despair. Okay, this didn't work. How can I tweak this so so that I still can accomplish the same goal type thing. Let your frustration reveal what matters most, and then start focusing your energy on that. Makes sense. And to be honest, this is exactly what I have been doing over the last couple of years. Once I finally identified what it was exactly that I wanted my career/business to be. I've always known that I wanted to own my own business of some kind, because I prefer to control my own time, my own efforts, the tasks I have to do, etc., rather than having somebody else do them. I have hated having a boss except for 2 times in my life. In all the years that I have worked, and all the bosses I've ever had, I've only had 2 that allowed me to embrace my autism, as it turns out, meaning just leave me alone and let me do the work. I know how to do it. I know how to keep myself busy. I will get it done on time. I will get it done right. I would just leave me the fuck alone. The managers who were always those micromanager types never worked for me. And so for a very long time, I mean, even before I found out I was pregnant with my son, I always knew I wanted to own my own job, basically. I wanted to start my own business of some kind. I also use whatever mindfulness tips I need to keep going when I do struggle, such as recognizing when I do, in fact, need to have a lazy day. Or reminding myself that I will feel better after doing that workout that I really don't want to do going into it. And I'm not talking about having a lazy day where my body feels like I could sleep for a week. I don't push myself to exercise on those days when my body really feels like, oh no, I'm worried about getting dizzy, maybe fainting, stuff like that. I'm carrying a lot of trauma here. So, 2 different things. There are days where I need to take a lazy day, and yep, I am not doing my workout today. But the other days where I'm like, I don't want to. But I'm not feeling that I could sleep for a week feeling. That's where I immediately go, you're going to feel better. Get your ass out there. You're going to feel better. And that each day I successfully complete just one task on my Google Calendar. Again, I'll do a bonus episode for that for you guys. Whether it's on my podcast, whether it's on any of my other goals, I celebrate it. I don't look back at the last month and say I completely wasted all my time. No, I took the rest that I needed. But hey, I got out there and I actually did my first walk outside in decent weather, or on the treadmill when it's hot and muggy, or there's a thunderstorm rolling by, or in another month or 2 probably 3 feet of snow outside. I'm not going outside to walk in that kind of weather, but I celebrate all of it. I look back, well, I managed to get 3 or 4 workouts in over the last month. I managed to do these chores and these chores over the last month. Anything that I have done that comes off my Google Calendar, I celebrate it, because something is better, always better than nothing. So it really does come down to your mindset on this, and everything we just talked about, taking that frustration and turning it into motivation for yourself. And I'm not going to lie to you about any of this. It has been a struggle. I mean, seriously, I have not had a job in 11 years. I have been putting as much effort as I possibly could into this, but when I stopped making myself feel bad about it or beating myself up for it, I find it's easier to rebound when I have those moments where, oh, okay, mental health break. I need to just figure it out. I need to just be lazy. It's been It's been a struggle. Because no, I cannot count on my mother and my brother for help. Again, I refuse to dump a lot of this on my son because he is not my therapist. Again, I really wish my mother had thought about that. And it's not his responsibility to fix my life or even just let me talk. That's what I should be able to talk to my brother and my mom about, but I can't. Anyway, and I just thought of something. Just kind of got a mental image of a lot of you out there thinking, whoo, hyper independent. Yeah, I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But the reality of my situation is, at this point, I feel like I'm doing more damage attempting to just get some kind of conversation to vent some things. I'm doing more damage trying to talk to people who clearly don't want to listen than to just keep it to myself at this point. Because I can journal. I've got the podcast. If I would just now, not beating myself up, find a way through whatever mental barrier I have for social media, especially with an app like TikTok, there's another option for me, and that works well when I'm on top of it and I'm not being blocked mentally in some way from doing that. But I kind of lost track with my notes. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, hyper independence, yeah, you would be right to a certain point, but okay, this is not making sense to me. Give me a second. Okay, hyper independence, I won't lie to you about it. It's been a struggle because I don't have anybody to turn to talk to, no therapist. My son's not my therapist. Those two, it's my responsibility, and anything that would make things easier for me in any way. I can't count on them for help because, wow, where was my head when I wrote this? My apologies. I'm not going to edit this out. Like I said, it's just you get what you get with me here. But, okay, I got to remove the parentheses. I can't count on my mother or my brother for help with anything that might make things easier for me in any way. I can't count on them. I talked about my hyper independences at work here. Yes, you would be right. However, I no longer wish to expend any extra time or energy it takes to even mess with it. So it's just, and that's what I was saying. It has been so much easier for me over the last year or so, recognizing that I don't have the emotional support that I need to just put my head down and do the work that I know that needs to be done to the best of my ability. It's a lot less frustrating for me. It's helps me stay focused on what I need to do. Plus, it helps me figure out how I want to do things in my life moving forward without any unnecessary opinions. That was another thing. But think about the fact that it has taken me 12 years to get to this point. And while I have a long way to go, at least now I know which direction I wish to go. So, like I said earlier, I eventually turn things around. It's just like, yeah, this really sucks, and I could let it get to me. It's been 12 years. Nothing is going to change, and I'm going to end up homeless as soon as my mom can't pay the bills because she's... The solitude has given me the clarity that I need to figure things out for myself. There we go. And that's something that has finally really settled in over the last 2 or 3 years. So I cannot tell you how many nights I have cried myself to sleep from exhaustion, from frustration, anger, stress, etc. I cannot tell you how many failed projects mentioned that earlier, thinking primarily of creating a source of income for myself. How many failed projects litter the path behind me. I cannot tell you how difficult it is to believe sometimes that my mom and my brother don't even care about me, because neither of them ever bothers to check in with me about my mental health. Because, especially with my mom, as long as my big emotions are not making her feel uncomfortable, and my brother too, that's why he just starts walking away whenever I'm like, I really need to have, and I'm on the verge of tears, I need to have a conversation, and he just walks out. As long as my big emotions and the big heavy duty stuff doesn't bother them, in their eyes, I'm fine. So why would they bother? This is the reality I'm living with. I cannot tell you how much I wish I could just hop on a plane or take my mother's car and just go. Just leave. Because I need new people to talk to, and I need new places to see. I have not been out of the state of Michigan in 2.5 years. The last time was my niece's quinceañera. My mom paid for that. Prior to that, it was 10 years. I have not left the state of Michigan in, well, pretty much since my trauma event. Other than the quinceañera trip. Because the trauma event happened after the first 2 visits since we moved to Michigan in 2009. There was one in 2011 and again in 2012. So yeah, I really want to just go and see new places and talk to new people. I cannot tell you how exhausting it is to keep fighting when it seems that even my fuel reserves have run dry years ago. I cannot tell you any of these things because the emotional depths to which I feel these things is truly beyond measure. And the thing is that I wish I could, because I know I'm not the only one struggling so deeply here. I have seen it all over social media in recent years. So I take that particular frustration and I use it to motivate me. It will get better, but I have to be the one to do it because I cannot live like this much longer. Because just as I've been inspired, motivated, etc., by other people's stories, that has helped me. The people I connect to on social media, because their stories resonate with me, I know that somebody out there needs to hear mine. That's what keeps me going. I know that this was a bit longer episode than I expected for Chamber of Secrets because there was a lot more personal stuff that I had to talk about. But there is another related topic that I wanted to discuss, but we'll dive more into that next week because what I wanted to pull from the book actually opens the chapter next week. So I'm cutting things off there for the week. I think we'll put a pin on things now and call it good for the episode. Next week, we are going to be diving into chapter 4 at Flourish and Blotts. And until then, I hope your week is as strange and unexpected as life at the Burrow. And I mean that in the best way possible. So thank you for dealing with my somewhat chaotic, I'm getting tired, it's after 10 p.m. mind right now. But it was a lot, and it all stems from how free Harry had to have felt. So again, I hope you have an amazing week, and I will see you next week.